everyone is aware of the idea of mindfulness meditations and mindfulness used in various applications in our life. And there's so many wonderful ways it can be done. So today's meditation is one of many mindfulness meditations, variations on that. The overall theme is observing and allowing things to happen. So I invite you to begin the time of meditation by noticing how your body is feeling, and adjust your position if you feel you need to, and let your body relax. Let it be supported by what you are sitting on. Take a deep inhale and exhale at your own pace. Do that again if you are feeling led to do so. And then let your breathing find its own pace and depth. Whatever speed or depth your body is breathing at is okay. You just let it be. Think about how, with each breath, air is coming into your lungs, and it's carrying oxygen because there is oxygen in the air. You don't have to put it there. Oxygen is incorporated in it. In your body, in your lungs, oxygen connects with your bloodstream, which carries the oxygen to your heart and then out to every cell in your body. The oxygen is supporting life in every cell. As the blood flows out of your cells, carbon dioxide is removed from the cells, flows back to your heart, then to your lungs, and out of your body. You are physically refreshed. But this is not all that is going on. Since divine love is infinite, it is in the air. Every bit of air we breathe is filled with divine love. As you breathe, divine love automatically flows into your body and to every cell. You are surrounded by infinite love. You are filled with infinite love. Love comes into your respiratory system with the air, mingles with your circulatory system, and flows through your capillaries into each and every one of your body cells. All your cells are awash with love. Divine love loves each cell for the individual part of divine life that it is. Joy fills each of your cells. Love can also cleanse away error ideas or residue embedded in your cells that doesn't belong there. As you exhale, bits of negative energy residue, are moved out along with the carbon dioxide to be broken down to use to build new good. You let it happen. Take a moment in the silence to contemplate this process. Now, I invite you to thank your body and divine love for their blessings, and to bring those blessings with you as you turn your awareness back to this time and place in this room as we prepare to proceed in our service. Amen.
Need the money after all.
That longer. Thank you. That's really good. Okay, first of all, in case anybody's wondering, I did change my mask. Some time ago, I saw this on a line of the Unity International page. I decided to order it, and I thought, well, maybe I should get that out now. I'm going to be standing up here. So I was wearing a different colored mask before. And my talk is my political peace power. We all know that there's been a lot of tension in the world, in our country, for various reasons. And currently, we are in the season of political ads. And they cause a great deal of distress for a lot of people. The primaries are passed, and now the ads are going in earnest. So even if you use a very popular tool, the mute button on a remote, as your tool for shutting off annoying ads, there is still often an emotional distress there. And you can tell because of people groaning, not another one, or yelling, liar, as you hit the mute, or something else. So it quiets it, but you have your feelings there still. And my goal today is to share unity teachings and practices that can be applied not only to improve your peace of mind, but also to contribute to building a positive thought climate for everyone. Now, these teachings and practices you may know all about or all about parts of them, but I want to review it, and there may be a few points that you haven't been aware of that you can incorporate if you wish. One of my issues that I'm concerned with at this time in our country's politics has been the enthusiastic despair regarding stupidity. You have one group says, you're stupid, and the other group says, you're stupid, and they're going back and forth on that, and there is a very popular meme in various forms going around that says, you can't change stupid. And it's always said with firm conviction that we are doomed for eternity to the consequences of this inescapable stupidity. Well, truth disagrees. In our three-dimensional world, we cannot, as the phrase goes, change the wind, but we can adjust our sails and reach our destination. We can clean up our energy thought environment. We can affirm wisdom. Now, wisdom is an infinite divine power, and when we affirm it, we are opening the way for it to work in us, in our world. And it being an infinitely intelligent power, it has all kinds of ideas about ways of succeeding in bringing intelligence and the effects of intelligence into our world. So I want to recommend, if nothing else today, affirm wisdom. And there are different ways of doing that. You may or may not have noticed when you came in that there was a pile of sheets on the table outside the door, and I invite you to take one if you want when you leave. It's a piece of clip art I found that I thought, oh, this is just perfect. For one thing, it has a winged globe on it. As you all know, could we have the winged globe slide, Martin? There it is. That's an old version. Well, from an early Unity magazine. Now, the winged globe is a very old symbol. It's been in a lot of cultures, And as happens with symbols with humanity over time, people change what it means a bit. They adapt it to their own system. With unity, it pertains to spiritual thinking, raising consciousness of an individual, and spiritual consciousness of individuals raising our planet, our world, which we want to do. The figure in the, what I'm going to call it the worksheet, is an Art Nouveau kind of lady. She's got a dramatic arm like this and a banner, but she's also holding the winged globe. So I chose her also because, as you may know, in the Bible, as patriarchal as it is, it does refer to wisdom as feminine. Let's see, and for instance, Matthew 11:19, wisdom is proved by her actions. So, just as interesting. So there she is, wisdom's raising the world. So we can affirm wisdom, and I'll be going over ways we can do that. Can we go to the next slide, please? Now this is a Bible verse, sections of it, that a previous speaker shared with us. One of the good talks that we had from ministers. He shared a verse from Isaiah that says, "I will now do a new thing. I will make a way in the wilderness and rivers in the desert." It just so happens that Myrtle Fillmore, in one of her many instructive letters, wrote about the wilderness. It's a sort of a metaphysical interpretation, but we're all learning as metaphysicians here. She said, "We must be faithful and orderly in speaking these words of truth, or we will be left in the wilderness of sense. To speak truth is a healing stream." So our sensory world can be kind of a mess. In our sensory world, we create things with our thoughts, but we can use some order and wisdom in doing so. And spirit, truth, is a healing effect on that. Both Charles and Myrtle Fillmore talked often about thoughts are things. And that's not new or just reserved to unity. That's in a lot of new thought. But when we are thinking repeatedly and with feeling on a particular thought, we are building up energy of that. That's the law of mind action, the third principle nowadays. And it behooves us to look at what are we building up. Like I said, this is not a thought that is unique to unity. There was a quote on Daily Fillmore one day of that idea, and they included one from Buddha that is written, "All that we are is a result of what we have thought." So contemplating a Bible verse such as this one or another one that speaks to you, or another inspirational writing, is one way you can exercise your mind's truth abilities. It's a way of practicing and filling our thought atmosphere with truth ideas. This particular verse, you could be looking at that as, I, my divine self, am going to do something new. We are not stuck with what has been done in the past. The divine has the power to do something new and can make a way in the wilderness. If you're feeling messed, just overwhelmed with a mess out there, there is a way. The truth can find the way. And it can bring rivers into the desert, bring good where there didn't look like there was any available, because the divine is infinite good. Now, for instance, One area that you may be concerned about, and this is often complained about in media, it's not fair. Some things are and some things aren't. So there's, in our three-dimensional being, this happens. But Myrtle addressed this in a metaphysical way, instructed a way to treat it metaphysically. She wrote, God is infinite justice. Speak this, think about it, study it word for word. Pray for understanding of its real meaning. Because God is infinite justice, you can always change the causes you set into operation, and so change the result. Charles also wrote, all true reform begins with the individual. Jesus began there. Now Jesus, we all know, also said during his trial, my kingdom is not of this world. And if you look at his teachings from the Unity and New Thought standpoint, he's teaching individual thought action, taking control of our minds, which normally we're not brought up to think we can, or even to consider doing often, but we can. And if we can choose the types of thoughts we think, couple them with feelings, and then we are affecting our world in a different way. We are exercising our power as divine beings. And it's a learning process, it's practice. You can't just, well, now I know, I've got it. You can't just say, I know I'm a divine being, and you're done. You don't know divine being that way. You have to spend time in prayer and meditation and affirmation to get to know divine being, and know divine being that you are. But it's a worthwhile practice and very rewarding. It's a wonderful experience to feel the presence of the divine. Okay, can we go to the next slide, please? Okay. Now, unity, my biggest problem with this talk was to narrow down the quantity of material, because unity has so much. And so I'm hoping I don't get too far going here. So this is, I shortened something that's called invocation. It's something Charles Fillmore wrote, and it expresses some divine ideas that are worth contemplating. He wrote, we are now in the presence of pure being, immersed in the Holy Spirit of life, love, and wisdom. Consider the difference of how you feel when you're thinking that I am immersed in pure being as compared to, I'm sunk in a world of misery. You don't have to choose the misery. You can go to build the expression of life, love, and wisdom. We can also, I wrote a derivation of that affirmation, invocation, in that second half, which says, we are now presence of pure being, emanations of life, love, and wisdom. We are divine being. And divine being is infinite. It's always trying to express being infinite. It needs a whole lot of variation, a lot of people, a lot of ideas. But each of us is a portion of that wonderful divine being. And it is seeking to express itself as us, as who we are. And we are these qualities of life, love, and wisdom. Again, these are ideas to spend time in contemplating. As Myrtle said, word for word, consider the meaning. Repeat it. Allow it to work. For our minds bring us to these spiritual truths and levels of being, and then those energies work. They do the work. As Jesus said, it is not I, him, the person, Jesus, that does the work. It is the Christ within. It is God that does it. Your spiritual energy system will bring about changes according to the thoughts you put in it. Just like our physical systems, we put food in. It breaks it down, absorbs it, distributes it, and uses it to build tissues without any of us having conscious control. We don't say, I want this percentage of stomach acids, and I want these energies to go to the ankles, and I want, this or that. The body system does it. It has intelligence in it, it does it. We have a spiritual system that when we put things in, it can work too. We don't have to tell divine intelligence how to do things. We need to know that divine intelligence is all-knowing, all intelligence, all wisdom, all inspiration, and it can come up with very good ideas and wants to bring about good. We can trust it to be bringing about good, and we want to work with it. So we want to recognize our divinity. And that can be reflected in your prayers and our affirmations. Myrtle wrote, did Jesus Christ perform any healing by wishing he had the power to do it? No. God gave him the power. All he was required to do, to lay hold of it, was to recognize, as the Bible verse says, I and the Father are one. And the same is true for us. We don't have to ask, I wish I could. We have to recognize who we are in terms of saying, yeah, well, I guess I am a divine child, like I have inherited blue eyes from my parents. I've inherited this capacity from my divine creator. Charles had another statement. As we learn to use the power of words, we discover that we no longer have to beg for that which we think we need and that satisfies our longings. We receive not by begging and crying, but by acknowledging and realizing, as Jesus Christ did, our oneness with the Father. Charles didn't like begging. He wrote about it more than once. So, he encouraged affirmation. No, you are. I am in charge of me. I am in charge of my thoughts. And God wants to express good through me and empowers me to do so. Part of this talk relates, well, obviously the talk itself relates to an article that I wrote, and Steve put a link in the email last to somewhere else because it was too long for the e-blast. But it's, the article was based on the book, The Five Principles by Reverend Ellen Davenport. It's a great book, very succinct about the five principles. Five principles are a way of organizing unity teachings. The teachings have been around a long time, but this is just a way of organizing them and helps to keep them on track. It was done initially by the Fillmore's granddaughter, and then it's been worked on by various authors. But in the book, Reverend Davenport shares a scenario. So that there's a candidate A and a candidate B, and it's about 50-50 polls. So a lot of people love A, a lot of people love B, but they also hate A. So they're putting all kinds of energy onto A. And then she concludes, A wins the election because that's where all the energy went. We don't want to do that. We want to be thinking about what we want, to go to the positive picture. What is a positive picture? Well, may seem obvious, but sometimes in our culture we get the idea that this scenario I'm about to present is a positive thing. So we say A wins over B, and we're thinking positive, but we think that B and all of B's followers now should rot in misery and shame without any ability to escape the mountains of derision or blocks to any future success of anything, because they're not worth it. Okay? This is not positive. It may feel that way, but we want to let that go. Instead, a possible positive, actual positive feeling, positive thoughts, are having faith in divine power, knowing that the goal of spirit is good, that infinite being is the source of all power and everything. So we want well-being, justice, safety, and systems that are working to support everybody. So that is a positive thing we want. You can imagine a specific way that would occur, but you wouldn't necessarily tie yourself to it. You want to be open. Divine wisdom might possibly have a better way of doing it. But you could imagine, in a way of practicing good imagery, you could imagine yourself reading a news article or watching TV and thinking, oh, that's a good idea. Glad they did that. Or imagine hearing that the rates for some negative occurrence are going down. You could imagine economic health for everybody in the whole country. You could even imagine, wow, that's better than expected. So you can practice. What would that be like? As you do this, you may be led to do something else. You could be led to run for office. You could be led to start a poll. You could be led just to continue praying. You are going to be led to what you should do. So sometimes when people hear that we bring about what we experience with our thoughts, they feel guilty or get a little defensive about it. We want to avoid that too. The fact is, that is how the spiritual system works. Just like gravity works in our physical level, there are laws in the spiritual system, and what you pair your feelings and thoughts for, it produces something, but you are free to change it. And we have learned over time, we still have a ways to go, obviously, but if we just throw garbage out all over the place, our environment becomes pretty awful. And there are people doing things to help clean up the environment. And in fact, in many places, certain actions to keep the environment clean are just normal now, that people years ago never thought of. And we haven't had a river in America catch on fire in a long time, but it did. We had one. But we're doing things, so we are improving, and we have room for approval, but we can change it and get to where we want to be. If you were driving someplace following your GPS and you found yourself on a frontage road that you didn't want to be on, you wouldn't stop your car and say, I have to stay here forever because I took the wrong turn. You let your GPS adjust and you get out of there and you get to your destination. So if we have been thinking in a way that turns out to be the wrong route, we can go, okay, I did it. That's annoying, but I can get out. And we can open up to wisdom and move on. So we can get on to where our destination is. Let's see. And when we are affirming and praying for others especially, let's remember that we are not enforcing our will on them. We are not deciding that our country will become dominated by one political party or other, whichever one we want. It's not going to make Uncle Fred change his ways and join my thought processes. You're affirming wisdom. You're affirming that you're using a mindfulness approach that, as difficult as it may be to see divine ideas in Uncle Fred, you know divine mind is in there somewhere. And you may have to start at that level. It's like, well, I suppose it's there, okay? I don't know, I can't see it, but it is there, and I'll let it exist. Be open to it being. And if it's going to work, it will work in Uncle Fred to the extent that it can, as he allows it. There's different ways that divine wisdom is going to manifest, or divine love, or life, whatever it is you're affirming. You could be affirming or praying for certain changes in our government policies. And you're thinking, instead of thinking, well, that slimy politician's never going to vote for it. But if you're open to the idea that divine wisdom and divine love are in operation in the situation to bring about good for everybody involved, whatever form that truly is, which might be better than your idea, you could allow for the possibility that, well, one, that politician might have a change of heart. Two, might not have a change of heart, not really care what happens to the people affected by the situation, but somebody would sell the politician on the possibility of profiting by a good change, so they think, okay, we'll go with that. Or there could be another situation. There was a minister, and I think she shared this here, a Unity minister, where her teenage son was complaining that when he was out with his friends, and they were, up to shenanigans, we'll say, he was always the one that got caught. He says, is this fair? I'm affirming, and I'm doing all this stuff, but I keep getting caught. And his mom said, well, that's the divine in you working. It knows you shouldn't be going on that path. So, yeah, well, it worked, and he had to change. Okay, so again, when you're looking at somebody else and thinking about what you think they should be doing, let the good in them happen. Some people pride themselves in their capacity to discern what's wrong. And it is good to be able to discern what's wrong. We want to know if your car isn't working, if you're sick, or recipe tastes funny, something. You want to see what's wrong. But it is not what you want to make your identity. Like, as a doer, a seer of what's wrong in you. Aha. And people who do that are frequently willing to share that with you. So and they have the answer. But we don't want to do that. There's a biblical correspondence to that. There was John the Baptist, as we all know. He foretold the beginning of the ministry of Jesus. He was the way shower, brought it up, that Jesus was coming to show us the way. He represents metaphysically intellectual understanding. He wasn't the Christ consciousness. Jesus took that step. But John the Baptist understood that there was this divinity coming and it existed. But he's got stuck in a human consciousness and spent a lot of time criticizing the authorities. Got to be kind of a pain. And that did not have good consequences for him. And as you may know, he ended up in prison and then was beheaded. He stayed in the negative dimension. Now, Jesus, of course, underwent the crucifixion, but he had the Christ consciousness and overcame it to show that lesson. John, just having the intellectual understanding of spirituality, wasn't able to overcome that. He was just lost his head. Okay, so there he is. And we don't want to do that. Okay, can we have the next slide? All right, now, one way to get feeling coupled with our affirmations is with joy songs, which are typically called, or singing. And Pete has graciously agreed to help lead a couple of these old songs. I learned these when I was down at Unity Village earning my license. And the first one, surprise, is about wisdom here. Could you run through it? It's to the tune of My Bonnie Lies Over the Ocean? Yes. Okay, and I thought he would be a better example.
Remember that?
Nice.
I just thought I would play it through. Okay, here we go. God's wisdom is ever within me. God's wisdom is ever in me. God's wisdom is ever within me. God's wisdom is ever in me. Wisdom, wisdom, wisdom is ever in me, in me. Wisdom, wisdom, wisdom is ever in me, in me. God's wisdom is ever within me. God's wisdom is ever in me. God's wisdom is ever within me. God's wisdom is ever in me. Wisdom, wisdom, wisdom is ever in me, in me. Wisdom, wisdom, God's wisdom is ever in me,
No. Wisdom is always complete and always accessible. And what a good feeling to feel that it's there, as compared to, I don't know or they don't know. We can affirm that it is here. Now, another area of the next song is also being led by Pete. And it is something that can be applied to yourself if you find yourself feeling fearful. It's an affirmation for courage and feeling safe. It also could be used as a treatment if you wanted to sing about, to affirm a world where individuality is safe and safely expressed. You could pick, and make it in general, or pick a refugee group or any group that you felt was maybe not feeling safe that you cared about. And you could, just change the pronouns, either one of these songs. But we'll sing it first with I, and then do you for the second time. Is that okay? Or should we just stick with I?
I think we should stick with that because I don't know what's
Okay, we'll stick with I. We can all use that. All right.
Okay, this is to the tune of All Design. Okay, so I'm not afraid of anything. Through life I freely roam. The world was made for everyone. I make myself at home. I'm not afraid of anything. Through life I freely roam. The world was made for everyone. I make myself at home. I'm not afraid of anything. Through life I freely roam. The world was made for everyone. I make myself at home. I'm not afraid of anything. Through life I freely roam. The world was made for everyone. I make myself at home.
That one. That came from a Unity book written back in the 1950s, I think. But I think you could spend hours on that today doing things. And it certainly could be applicable as a substitute for watching an ad. or a news portion. Okay, now our last slide is, now I'm going to say that I always tell Barry when he talks that I covet his slides because I think they're really good. This is the first PowerPoint presentation I ever did, so. As you can see, it's not excellent graphics. However, I have this for the idea of having visual prayer and affirmation. So we have the unity wings, the concept of spirituality raising our earth, raising our world, and our flag. There's a whole lot of news about, our country's going to heck, I'll say, and wherever. And it's doomed and doomed and doomed. But we have spirituality behind every human being, and all of our systems and all of the countries of the world, all the religious and political beliefs, there are divine ideas behind them. They all are instigated by a divine idea, imperfectly expressed, perhaps, but there is divinity there, divine power. And so we can practice knowing with imagery that our system, as well as others, are divinely supported. This is not saying that everybody in the United States has to join a unity church. We're not going there. That, Jesus commented, again, as I said, his kingdom is not of this world. We're not here to rule the world. We're here to rule our minds. That's what he was teaching. And if every person does their own mind, that will coordinate into more and more full expression of divine good that we can all experience and share in. So you may want to, if you're so inclined, create a visual prayer. There's the classic technique of treasure maps, often used to apply if you want a thing or a vacation or something. You can apply it to what would be good pictures to illustrate your idea of America or voting or the world. You can clip things out of magazines, you could draw them, you can add affirmations. It's always encouraged to say this or something better when you do those, to have some sort of spiritual image, something that speaks to you. And so verbal, just speaking, singing, imagery, meditation and prayer, all these things, if we take time to practice them, whatever time we put in to doing any or all of them, we are contributing to the dissolving of negative thought clutter we've got and building a cleaner energy, spiritual energy environment around us. And I know you're all good at that. You can do that and committed. So thank you, and look forward to hearing more. And feel free to pick up one of those wind globe sheets. You could put images or affirmations or whatever you want on it, or just color it, whatever. So thank you.